a few teams that were pretenders last year, but we expect to transition into contenders this season. We already kind of highlighted one of yours to start off the episode, but I'll give you the floor for your pretenders to contenders this season.
So my contenders, I think, is the Atlanta Falcons. I really like what they have going on the offensive side of the ball. You got Drake London, Darnell Mooney. For the sake of all future fantasy owners of this player, Kyle Pitts. Hopefully, this is the year that he makes a breakthrough. And then you have a younger quarterback in Michael Penix. And then you also have a good defense. You got AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates. Like you have the pieces. And the main reason that I believe that they're going to go to the playoffs is because their division is treacherous. With the exception of the Bucks, I think it'll be between Atlanta and the Bucks. I like what they have. Again, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I think this is the year that Atlanta makes it back into the playoffs. And then, of course, I'm not even gonna say too much, but you know who's going back to the playoffs. We're going back, and we're looking for number 7. Okay, all right. Josh Allen, Ray Allen, Jimmy Fallon, doesn't matter. Patriots in 5. We are going back. And I cannot wait because we are going to send the Bills home. We are going to send you guys home. So I'll give you the floor, but just know we're back.
Just know if this backfires on you, the clipping of this entire episode is going to be absolutely gold. But I do see what you're saying for sure for the Pats, and then for the Falcons. I mean, I don't know if you mentioned Bijan either, but like
Oh my God. Yes,
the whole
absolutely.
offense
Yes.
is and we saw the Michael Penix that maybe a lot of people didn't expect, pardon me, to close out last season. There were a lot of close games last year. The Falcons had 1 or 2 go their way. They could have made the playoffs, right? So I think the Panthers will be decent, but not good enough to contend for a playoff spot. And then it's really against them and the Bucks, I think, for the division. My picks, Shawn, and we've talked a lot about the Chicago Bears. I won't go into too much detail with them, but I thought they did well upgrading the O-line, Ben Johnson in there. And keep in mind, I forgot to mention this, but around 6.5 teams newly go into the playoffs every year. So 6.5 new teams make the playoffs every single year on average. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 7. It really depends. But when you look at it, like right now, you're looking at it and thinking, well, the top 14 teams from last year should be the top 14. Usually that's not the case. And it opens the door for a lot of teams like the Bears. And I think the Bears will take that next step, at least contend. The other one I had in the NFC, Deshaun, I don't know if they'll make it, but I think once again they'll be very, very close, is the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are a very sneaky playoff team to me. I think last year they were oh so close. I think they finished 8-9, and the big hole heading into free agency was the defensive line, and they went out and picked up the big-time addition of Josh Sweat coming off the big Super Bowl performance. And they also picked up Dalvin Tomlinson, who will work on the interior of that defensive line. So they address those needs. Kyler Murray, for me, Deshaun, is a little underrated. I think he's very talented, obviously an incredible athlete coming out of college, drafted, I think, 9th to the MLB and 1st overall in the NFL. They held it very close with a lot of playoff contenders last year. Now, they had their fair share of blowout games where they just got wiped, but I think second-year Marvin Harrison Jr., he steps up. They maybe add a few more weapons. The offensive line and James Conner was very, very good last year. They'll be good again. I think in the NFC, maybe the Cardinals can break through. It's not a guarantee. I wouldn't be surprised if they miss it. I'm just throwing it out there that they last year were very close, and I think they'll maintain that distance from the playoffs this year.
All right, so I'm gonna save us quick because I know if we don't mention this team and this specific player, we will get annihilated in the comments. So we picked the Patriots, the Falcons, Chicago, and the
The
Cardinals.
Cardinals.
So there's a team that we're leaving out, Cincinnati.
Yes. Okay, yes.
No,
But I
no, no,
wouldn't.
no, 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 no. I completely agree, but I just think if we don't mention them,
Yeah,
it'll be hell.
for sure.
I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs though.
Really?
No, I just don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I just don't think that you can rely on 3 players and then a makeshift defense, especially in that division. Because yes, as much as we give the Steelers and Tomlin heck, like, they win games, right? And that's going to make it harder for Cincinnati to make the playoffs because, like, the Ravens are going to be in the playoffs. It's going to be hard in that division to win games. And then just the rest of the AFC in general. I just don't like their chances from an overall team standpoint. They do have, like, the names. They do have the firepower offensively, but we see what offensive firepower does. Eventually it falls apart. Eventually you need your defense to get a stop, and that defense is just not made to do that. Who knows? Maybe they are able to re-sign some guys. Maybe they're able to go and draft some studs. Maybe make a trade. But with how the Cincinnati Bengals are currently structured, I have them missing the playoffs for a second year in a row, and then I think things get a little tricky with Joe Burrow and his relationship with that front office.
Yeah, we can wrap things up. And the reason I didn't mention the Bengals, obviously, is because in my eyes, they were contenders last year, and they just kind of they were unlucky when you get to the end of the season. They started off the year slow as per usual and weren't able to pick things up with the injuries to T. Higgins, whatever. This is kind of interesting when you look at the AFC playoff picture because for me, the teams that I'd imagine making next year, you got Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, and whoever wins, probably the Texans in that division. I'll give it to them. But those are the division winners, right? And then here's the thing. It opens the door for 3 wild card teams. And this year, I believe it was Los Angeles, Denver, and Pittsburgh. Now, all 3 of those teams, for me, might not make it next year. I think the Broncos are first in line, but the Steelers and the Chargers, there's by no means a guarantee for them. Like, those teams could very well lose a few key games, and it's a wrap for them. So that's why I believe maybe the Bengals could squeak into a 6th or 7th seed. I do think the Ravens will win the division. I just find it hard to believe, Deshaun, that with the big contracts they've brought in with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, that they will allow themselves to miss the playoffs again. I refuse to believe it with a generational talent, at least in my eyes, at the quarterback position in Joe Burrow. I find it so difficult to imagine a back-to-back season where the Bengals upset again. Now, it could happen. It could. And if it doesn't, then I think we're getting into very dangerous territory, almost into, like, are we going to ship off T. Higgins at that point because we need help outside of the 2 receivers and 1 quarterback that we have taking up around 50% of the cap.